Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Drinking a Guinness on a 110-degree day.
Yeah,
That's a
geez, it's
man's
probably
man
hotter for
right
you
there.
guys. I heard you guys have like crazy hot weather.
I ran out of Guinness. I got the Manhattan going today.
I'm drinking a peach shake-up bubbly cocktail.
Well, that sounds
Yeah, you were
delightful. I
giving
love a
me
good
shit for
peach drink.
drinking that thing in Bloomington. What was
How
that
hot is
You
called?
it?
ordered a Bahama
A
Mama.
Bahama Mama.
We've been talking since the fifth grade, and somehow we've got more to say. Beat kicks and faster rhythm. Inflation's high, the game's too steep. Stream wars rage while we lose sleep. Big tech's wild, the Fed's a mess. But let's start a party, I guess. Symposium, where tangents thrive. Old friends talking, the takes collide. Symposium, no wrong or right. Just good conversation deep into the night. Yeah, we're still talking.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 10. We've made it. We're back. Took 3 weeks off. It was a wild 3 weeks. We've got a lot to get into. Our 10th episode. We're a decade old. So first I just want to go around the horn. Reactions to Symposium episodes 1 through 9. How do you all feel the show is going? We started this back on episode 1 was January 7th, 2025. We recorded. We've done 10 episodes in the first half of the year. What do we think? Sam, give me your thoughts.
Well, we've evolved. I think we've definitely grown. We've seen some changes in what we talk about, and I think how we talk about it. We've had a live show, which was I think a milestone for us. We're coming off the last live episode, so there's some pretty clear growth that we're seeing both in the podcast itself, but I think with the reception of the podcast too. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on your circles, but it seems like a lot of the people in my circle who are still watching have really reacted positively to it. I think, we had that initial spike off our first couple episodes where people were more interested than anything. A lot of our early feedback was too much AI, your episodes are too long. And those people, I think, mostly stopped watching, but it seems like we've sort of started to find our core group of listeners who I'm proud to have come back over and over again and sort of interact with us. So I think that's been a really fun part of the growth too, is having that interaction with the audience. But I think it's nothing but up, and I'm going all in on Symposium 2025.
Yeah. Justin?
Yeah, no, I have to say the first live show I think went a lot better than I thought it was going to. I thought we were gonna have technical difficulties. I thought we were, gonna be not as organized as we are. So I guess, give ourselves a pat on the back for that. But then also the audience coming in there, I think it adds a little flavor to the pod. People getting fact checked live, I thought was hilarious, or people just bringing up different ideas for us to talk about on the pod. It's kind of like having another or a couple other people, in that circle with us, even though, they're not talking, but they're presenting their ideas. So throwing in the live show, I say we do it more often than once every 9 episodes. It doesn't have to be every week. For instance, this one's not live, but maybe every
I
other
gotta
week.
interrupt you there, just for lawyer's sake. I do believe this one is live. I have third-party confirmation coming in
What?
now that this episode has been live for 17 minutes. We have at least one viewer. I'm checking the viewer counts now, but
What?
sorry to interrupt you there, Justin. Just
One of
needed
the
to,
own are
you
the
know, let you know
original
that this
people.
is live, just in case you didn't want to, state to the public that you're a criminal.
Okay, well, it's totally
not
changed the
actually live,
vibe
is
of
it?
the actual. Are we on
It is.
YouTube?
And I think we're doing great. Let us know in the let us know in the chat if we're doing a great job.
I mean,
Pretty funny.
well, I'll take it back. We can do live whenever we want to. We don't need to be on a schedule. It might even be without us knowing.
How are we live?
So,
What are we
for
live
those that
on?
are, yeah,
Blue Sky?
We're live on YouTube. What?
I love it. I'm trying to log. Like, how do you even open up the chat? Because I'm trying to see if anybody's watching. Can you drop
well,
it
I
down?
have
didn't.
it.
You know, if we're gonna go live, I would have
Well,
put
we
out
didn't
some more
promote it.
messages for people to come on
This
if
is,
they
this
want.
is how
Grace-
we'll know
so,
who our
I
true
know because-
followers are.
I was running late, and Grace got a notification on her phone. She was like, "Oh, Symposium's live tonight." And I was
Wait,
like,
Sam,
"No, I
did
don't
you
think
do
so."
this? Or
No.
Did...
No,
Okay,
I
so
was
awesome.
upstairs.
I wonder if it's a
I
running.
think Riverside did it
Yeah, it's
automatically.
just automatic.
Okay.
So I sprinted down here like, "Oh shit! I didn't know we were doing a live show."
God.
I thought you were just dropping the surprise. I was like, hey, I turned live on. I didn't realize you weren't aware.
Yeah, I thought this was Sam. I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll do it live.
Did I turn it off?
I don't know.
Carry the way.
Let's
I don't
see.
even
Let's
know
see who
how.
shows up. We don't have to. We could
I
take it
haven't
down.
logged in. I don't even know how to look at that. But
Wow.
Should we
All
do
right.
a vote if we want to stay live or not? Just because
There goes all of our hot takes on Israel and Iran.
can't be edited out now.
Yeah.
it's real. We're the real. This is the real party. That's our whole thing.
So
Oh, yeah, the
confused
real
by
party.
Rivers.
Yeah, I got to keep bringing that back.
It's probably just
Because
a
in that scenario, I
cache
think
setting.
Well, Austin, let's just get started. I say we leave it. You guys good with that?
Just
I
keep
don't care
rolling.
either way.
Someone's got to have the chat up, though, if someone does comment in the chat.
Yeah. Grace H says, "Good job, all. You are indeed live on YouTube." Great. So we've got one viewer. Oh no, now it's two,
Perfect.
but I think that's me. So
I'm also viewing.
I think Grace is just watching live. She's
gonna-
just upstairs, so no pressure.
So
Okay.
we've got one whole viewer.
Well, who did we leave off on giving thoughts?
Going to
Did everyone
Matt.
give their
Matt,
thoughts?
what do you think about the first
Yeah, I
9
never gave
episodes?
mine. I think we've enlightened the population. I think this is a game changer. I'm not sure if there's ever been a podcast this revolutionary. I don't know. I think it's gone well. I think I've enjoyed myself. We originally just like started this whole thing just talking to each other in general on calls like every like couple months, and then we realized that we like talking to each other more than that, and so like Austin one day was just like, hey, these are actually pretty good conversations. Let's turn this into a podcast. And I was like, if you want to do all that, go for it. And I think it's been a pretty good success. I think most of the time we hit good topics. We're not just always like rambling on about nonsense. I agree. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. We definitely fall back on the AI conversation a lot. I understand that, and I am here to hear that conversation and to push back on it sometimes. So I would agree with we probably need to tamper that down. But I think
Hey,
overall,
did you see that chart I just texted?
was that you
Replace
sent that
ARR?
chart?
yeah.
What was that chart? The ARR one?
Yeah.
I didn't see. There was no X and Y axis from what I could tell, so I didn't know what it was for.
It was, yes, there was. It was time and revenue dollars.
Okay,
To the
maybe I just
moon.
looked at it too quickly.
So what else should we talk about? Because AI is all there is.
Are we going back to the moon?
We're going, well, I don't know,
Careful,
because
don't want to ramble.
that's a whole nother thing, because Trump's cutting the NASA budget. All right, well, I'm glad you're all enjoying the show. We'll keep doing another 10 episodes, I suppose. I think our goal for the year is probably to get to 20 episodes. Seems like reasonable. We have to double where we are now, halfway through. I set my some 2025 personal focus areas, I called them, here at the beginning of 2025. And number 3 was get my voice back. Very dramatic. And I put
Love
in
it.
parentheses symposium. I don't know that I lost my voice, but I felt like I had things to say and I wanted a place to say them. And that's what we've made here. And I haven't been canceled yet. And nobody who I wouldn't want to hear my these thoughts has caught on that these thoughts are out there. So if you're listening to this,
Your employer has not started listening yet. Good to know. Scream it from the mountaintops.
All right. Well, I hope I hope the fans have enjoyed the first 10 episodes. We'll get into this one. We've got all sorts of good topics to hit on. First, we need to do a little bit of recap on what's happened in the last 3 weeks. I just wanted to start. I spent a week vacationing in Alaska. We did an Alaskan cruise. I'll say we were in the younger side of the population on the cruise ship, as you can imagine. But it was a really nice way to see Alaska. Saw all sorts of cool little towns and a lot of um, a lot of glaciers. We took a helicopter ride and landed on top of a glacier. That was
Oh,
pretty cool. And then we took a train. We were in this town called Skagway, and it was a place where the gold rush kind of was. They started, and then they built these train tracks up through the mountains to get to where the gold was. And so we took this train up there, and I just couldn't help but think, and I think I sent you guys this, but for the audience, I couldn't help but think, reminiscing on the treacherous journey that people made to go find gold back in the 1800s, left everything, left their families behind, went, many of them died, chasing after this thing called gold that could turn people into riches or to give people riches. And I couldn't help but think how we are lucky enough to be living in the modern day gold rush of AI. And it just
knew
made me
you were gonna
so
say
happy
that. Does that mean
that,
is this why Victoria has to now be concerned that you're gonna leave her and move out to Silicon Valley?
hey, don't put it past me. The lucky thing is for us, we can do this gold rush from right here at our desk on our laptops. And it's just, it is incredible. So, really saw a lot of parallels there. And I think that that's why we're so focused on AI. We got to chase that gold. So, anyway, great trip to Alaska. Would highly recommend people go check it out. Very scenic land out there and just a cool part of the country to go see.
What was the highlight? Helicopter ride?
Highlight probably the helicopter ride. It was very cool. The train ride was really cool too. You started at sea level, you go up 3,000 feet right on the side of the cliff of a mountain.
Did
Um,
your ears pop?
yeah, they did. But the
what part of
helicopter
the
was really cool.
I bet. What part of the state were you on? Like the southern portion or the northern portion? The west?
We were on the western side, so we started in Anchorage and then we finished in Vancouver. That's in Canada.
Nice.
So I
Yes.
had to go into Canada for a little bit, unfortunately. The
Unfortunately.
51st state, people are calling it.
What's wrong
Future,
with
future.
Vancouver?
Um, we did the first thing in Vancouver. Our bus had to stop because we were making way for a Palestine protest. Welcome to Canada.
Interesting. Did you watch?
No, I closed my
Did you
eyes.
participate?
So that was my time off. You guys get up to anything interesting?
Mm,
Worst round of golf in a long time. I got pretty
Okay.
low.
Hmm. Well, it's the midsummer
Thought
blues.
about,
It's finally summer.
yeah, it
The
is
summer
finally
solstice
summer.
has
Thought about
passed us. The
quitting,
days are getting
golf in
shorter.
general.
I
But
heard
Keep
you
your
got
head
it
we're
up.
back
back.
though.
We're back. We had a good range session.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
So,
Big round tomorrow night.
those three
Yeah.
weeks I've also given up chess. I used to play a lot of chess. I will not play any more chess.
too many
Deleted it.
losing rounds or something?
Chess is a game where you can have a great game. You make one wrong move and it all comes crashing down on your head, and I don't need that sort of stress in my life. I just let's
That's
stay on the path and not have to worry about that stressor. At least off my phone. It was just too much time, and then
That's really interesting.
I don't know. So those are the two biggest moments of my week.
Okay. Okay. Well, speaking of one wrong move did not happen when Donald Trump orchestrated a beautiful strike onto the Iranian nuclear sites. That, of course, is the big news from the week. So, what was
Heck
it?
of a
Saturday?
segue.
That was a hell of a segue. What was it? I guess Friday night from the middle of the country. Where was that at? I don't know.
Missouri.
Missouri. B-2 bombers take off. A few of them go west over California. Diversion, it turns out. The other ones go east. They fly for 18 hours nonstop, straight to Iran.
That was 37.
Round trip. They deploy the never before used, most powerful missile, I guess, bomb bomb that's not a nuclear weapon, called the Bunker Buster. It hits the nuclear sites, which are buried 300 feet into a mountainside, burrows its way down, and explodes, dismantling a few of Iran's most developed nuclear sites. We find out about this Saturday. I actually got a notification about an earthquake in Iran before we learned about what actually had happened.
This was after.
Was this TMZ reporting this?
No.
No, I heard the
It said
earthquake thing too.
earthquake.
This was after the Israeli bombings into Iran. It was like the next day after, I thought. I didn't
What
realize.
Israeli bombings?
Huh?
We dropped the bombs.
Israel bombed
The first one.
Iran
Before,
to start the bombing.
Yeah, before
Would have
the
started
US.
off.
Yes,
I
and
see.
then they released that. I didn't hear it wasn't an earthquake. I heard there was an earthquake in
There was
Iran.
actually an earthquake?
That's what I heard. I didn't realize
Oh,
it
that's
wasn't.
interesting timing.
I heard it was after. This was like the day after. I mean, I'm on my phone, so if someone else wants to like type this in real quick, maybe it was related to the U.S. bombing, but I heard there was actually an earthquake.
You know what you can use your laptop for, Matt, is have it next to you. So you can still use your laptop on the pod.
You don't see my setup right now. It'd be a little difficult.
You don't have enough
Well, at any
Xbox
rate,
CDs.
the intelligence that came out from the U.S. side was that it was massively successful. Everyone's been getting their flowers for a successful mission. Pilots fly home, complete the 37-hour round trip in the B-2s. Like I mentioned earlier, they had bathrooms at microwaves. Pretty cool. I did some research. There's only like 19 B-2 bombers. There were 21 that were built. 2 of them are no longer in service. There's only about 500 people, I think, that are able to pilot the aircraft or have ever been able to pilot the aircraft. Thoughts? Where do we stand? Are we happy, mad? What are the reactions?
I just have a question about the bombers. Now that you've just brought that up, that you were looking into it. Do they fly super low so that they don't get picked up on radars? Do they fly super high if they don't get picked up on radars? They go so fast. Like, how do they get away with not being spotted?
My understanding
Anybody
is the
have no
material and the shape of the aircraft allow it to radar. Again, I don't know how accurate this is, but on radar, a B-2 looks like a bird. So
You're on it.
you can be like, oh, that's not a plane. Granted, another comment about that was, oh, this bird is traveling at 600 miles an hour. So I guess you could, in theory, maybe figure out something's up there, but you don't know exactly what. But yeah,
Yeah.
it is the material and the shape allow it to be very small on radar.
You nailed it. The shape, the material, radar absorbent materials, it's called, the engine concealment, and then tactics and flight paths. They fly at high altitudes, use carefully planned routes to avoid known radar sites.
I wonder if the U.S. coordinates that with any of like the European Union, if they're gonna fly over that region at all. Like, hey, just so you know, we're gonna be in your area, but I don't know.
I wonder
They would
what
never release that
airspace
information to us.
they crossed. Because, yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, you're probably
They might have-
Syrian, Iraqi, so those are 2 countries you don't have to tell. And then north of Israel is
Lebanon.
Lebanon. Probably flew over there. Also country, I guess. You might not have to
They're
tell.
both pretty small.
Israel, you probably did tell. And then I don't know who controls like the Mediterranean. Like those technically owned?
Turkey, maybe.
Do you have to coordinate with those countries, or do you just?
I don't
I feel
know.
like you tell as few as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. My guess is they probably don't tell much,
Cyprus
though.
probably flew over.
Greece, maybe.
Those people are pissed.
Yes.
What are those?
Yeah, I don't know. That's all just we'll never know. They would never let us know if how they coordinated their attack, but that's just interesting to think about.
30,000-pound bombs.
Insane.
B-
Where do you
So
suppose
does that
Are
mean-
they
is that a
$500 million?
metric?
30,000.
Is that a metric of explosive power, or does it weigh?
No, that was weight.
weight. So it's like, yeah.
So,
Very
B-2s read were specifically the only aircraft that could carry these munitions.
Where
So
do you suppose that they test out these bunker busters?
probably in like
Nevada.
Nevada desert. The government
They-
owns most of Nevada land.
We have our own entire Iran in the west of the United States. Like, it's pretty much the same terrain.
You're just saying desert.
Yeah.
Like, we got some desert out there. It's like Iran.
I guess we do have a lot of space out there.
I feel like even the
Nukes
parts
were
that aren't
tested.
desertish, they're like the mountainous regions that have like plants. They're still like rocky. Like I just, honestly, I've never been to Iran, so please, if you're listening, let me know if I'm just talking out of my ass. But I feel like Nevada is exactly like Iran.
I would love for an Iranian to come on the pod and talk
Yeah.
about this.
How open
I
were our
love-
borders with Iran? Like were U.S. citizens able to go to Iran within the last decade pretty easily? I have no
I
clue
I
about
bet
doubt
you
it.
could have, but it would have been probably going to like Russia in the 60s,
Yeah.
like a bad idea.
Like they're definitely on the list of like don't go there, but
Yeah.
I don't know if they could prevent us from going there.
Well, that's a different thing. Maybe not in this pod, but the Trump travel ban order, that was reminiscent of 2016 or his first term. He had a couple countries where he travel banned. That was
Oh
kind of.
yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah.
Remember that? That was Trump one.
I had I know somebody from Afghanistan who reached out to me after he did that the travel ban. I didn't get to have a in-depth conversation with them, but yeah, kind of crazy thinking about some of the oppression happening in these terrible countries. I don't want to call them terrible countries because I feel like some of the systems in place are terrible, but honestly, if I turn that lens around on the United States, I feel like I could claim that we're a terrible country in some ways. So it's really just how it's presented to you and the people who are actually struggling underneath those systems. It's tough to see things like a travel ban occur and then think of the humanitarian side of things, like the impact that it's having on real people, real families that live there. I think that's where a lot of social issues come into play, pretty much across the political spectrum. And it's a tough one that you either look at it and prioritize that number one, or something else is prioritized, like safety. So I think as far as the Iran operation goes, I'm feeling like that is kind of impressive that we flew 36 hours nonstop and executed this, potentially very successful mission pretty flawlessly. Feels like a very strong show of force, which gives me some security in this sort of destabilized world order that we have going on right now, where there's wars going on that are lasting longer than I expected, like Ukraine versus all of Russia. Multiple years now, Palestine versus Israel, like these very powerful countries sort of like dragged into these long drawn out wars. And we failed in Afghanistan just 2 years ago. Like all of these strong countries are in these sort of unsuccessful war positions. So to have the United States execute something in a powerful show, to me, made me feel more secure as a nation. But also thinking of the destabilization, and then are we just getting drawn into another big war against Iran that we aren't going to be able to execute on, and we're just going to be like another 6-year-long war where all these people are suffering and like nothing's actually getting accomplished. What's in the news?
Like literally within an hour, ceasefire.
I did not see that.
Will be starting with Israel and Iran.
I just saw that before you texted like
literally,
what, like 20
yeah,
minutes ago.
it was about 5 minutes before the pod.
I did see that
Well,
Trump.
Caroline Levitt.
I saw Trump tweeted that, but neither of their governments had released anything yet.
Hey, Caroline Levitt says it, so it must be true.
But yeah,
In
totally.
48 hours,
If she
48
says
hours,
it's gotta be
President
fact.
Trump directed one of the most secret and successful military strikes in history, obliterated Iran's nuclear program, successfully brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, effectively ending the 12-day war. All of this was only possible because of President Trump's courage, strong leadership, and steadfast
Most humble guy I know. The most humble guy I know.
I don't know if that's a word.
If that doesn't sound
Well,
like
that's a
so authoritarian, I don't know what does. Like patting yourself on the back for a bombing that you did, and then saying, "Oh look, I brokered peace by blowing their things up."
Well,
Like,
at
that's
least he
kinda
should have
ridiculous.
been shouting out the military there. Like, I don't know,
It
that
worked.
statement, you gotta give some props out to gain my respect. But you go me. It's just like, come on, dude, do a little bit of help.
Thank you for your
Humility?
attention to this matter.
That cracked me up. That was how he signed off his tweet announcing the successful mission. It was like, we just bombed Iran. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Bang.
Pretty funny.
Awesome.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the issue, honestly. Like, I don't like the idea that we have to go in there and start bombing their nuclear sites, considering Israel was already bombing them. Like, I just don't want to get the US involved in a war, and I understand that they said there's a ceasefire. Ceasefire does not mean that a war is not happening. Ukraine and Russia totally said they were ceasefiring multiple times in their war,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that is still going on. So I'm not
Israel and
gonna,
Palestine too.
yeah, like it's constantly going on. So
How
I'm not
much
gonna say,
how much do you think Trump and a lot of these countries announce things to try and force hands? Like, hey, we just came to an agreement, and then forces like their own citizens to be in support of this supposed agreement, and like forces them to come to the table when in fact there was no agreement in the first place. I wonder if there's some of that kind of political game
For
being played on a global
this,
stage.
well, I could
I don't
see
know about for
some of
this,
that.
but
I think a lot of this is calculated. I mean, he said a couple days before that he'll make a decision within 2 weeks, like he did a delay on if he was going to bomb or not. He was like,
I thought that was
make me
crazy,
2 weeks.
but it makes sense in
Yeah, I was going to
retrospect.
text you guys and be like, oh my God, like we're just delaying everything. Um,
Yeah,
and then it was all
taco.
part of the plan. Um,
But kind of
so
what
I
I
don't
was
know.
saying, I'm not even like fully against it. Like if they were enriching uranium and trying to build a nuclear bomb and it actually had a potential of them having a nuke, I don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. I don't, particularly a theocracy that's running and whose their leadership has maintained multiple times that they want to basically destroy Israel. So, and that's like their neighbor. So, I don't like the idea of them having a nuclear weapon. So, I understand us wanting that not to happen. I would like to understand, like, supposedly there was like nuclear conversations with Iran going on with the US that Trump said he was involved in. They were trying to come to a place where I was reading up on it. They were saying that they send in like a third party or like this nuclear watchdog essentially that like ensures that they're not using their uranium for nuclear weapons. They're using it more for like energy and like they're being watchful about it supposedly. Um, and who knows, maybe those talks just completely broke down or they broke some rule and then the US decided, well, this is our best course of action because they're not following. I haven't seen any reporting on that that proves that they've broken that agreement, but I just don't like the idea of us having to go in there when it's all the way across the world and Israel was already bombing them, and it seemed like they were pretty effective in doing so. So I was a little surprised when I saw that we were sending in. Yeah,
At the same time, we are Iran's like stated number one enemy, and like isn't it us that needs to be destroyed?
well, I think Israel's
it's
our number one
Israel's
enemy.
probably number
Is
one, isn't
Israel?
it? Yeah.
They do not get
What
along.
what's their MySpace page? I want to see where they've ranked the United States on their enemies list.
Fortunately, I went over my head, Sam. That was right after me.
I actually never had a
Never
MySpace.
Don't know what you're talking about.
I feel like they had enemies boards though.
To counter Matthew's point, well, not counter, but I'm more in favor of it because if you guys kind of remember, I don't know when, maybe that was a month or two ago when Pakistan and
India.
India got at it. That was a little scarier to me because you had two nations that do have a nuclear arsenal, and you're just like, if one side oversteps, like that dance is a lot scarier than a dance between a nuclear power and a non-nuclear power. So, I mean, the the regime doesn't exactly have a lot of leeway in my eyes, right? They had some nasty crackdowns in 2020 where they killed their own people who were rising up, for change and stuff like that. So I'm not going to be sympathetic to the Iranian government. So I'm going to lean towards they were dragging the U.S. along, or I'm butchering that, but kind of stalling the process to make progress in their nuclear regime. And I think the United States finally had enough and said, all right, you know what? I mean, Trump said it again. I don't take everything Trump says as truth all the time, but like, I wanted to make a deal and they didn't make the deal. So I guess if we have to take, I don't know if we'll ever know the truth. I mean, that's the kind of thing about the government. We'll never know the full story. and we just kind of have to take our people's words for it. But I'm of the opinion that I'm okay with it. I think that, to Sam's point, the fact that we were able to fly across the world and then bomb a country and then come back, again, I don't think they're a adversary that we were necessarily ever afraid of. I think modern warfare is going to be way different. Like, if a modern country actually wanted to fight, it would be hacking, it would be destroying electrical grids. I mean, that would be your real, like, modern country. I think we're bombing a backwater country, right? So it's not as impressive, but it's pretty insane that the whole operation itself it's kind of mind-boggling that we're able to do that.
So what role does physical warfare play in a cyber world? Is it still important to have physical power like the B-2 bombers?
It's kind of this interesting, because you'd almost
Yeah.
you take out the infrastructure, but I mean, physical, yes, but at the same time, physical is really good for invasions. But at what point would, like US and China, at what point would you actually invade, right? You would kind of just want to destabilize those countries, like each other internally, and then, you take the United States without electricity for 2-3 weeks. I don't want to be in this country with that. That's, stuff could start breaking down. You might see some nasty stuff going on. So, I don't know. It's a good question.
There's a good movie
Matt.
called Zero Day about that on Netflix.
I don't know. I'm not worried about like full-on colonialism or like a massive war with another huge nation. Like no one's trying to invade anybody in that sense. Like obviously Russia's in a war with Ukraine right now. That's
Yeah. So you look over there, though. It's like that's
them,
where the question is.
that makes sense. For the United States, I'm not necessarily concerned, but I mean, with the war going on in Russia and Ukraine, obviously physical warfare is very important. But back to what you were saying earlier, I think I pretty much align with honestly what you were saying, Justin. Like if it's true that like talks really broke down and Iran was getting close to a nuclear weapon, I don't really have a problem with the US going in there and putting an end to it. Like it seemed like it was their way of showing force of like, hey, just so you remember, like we are the dominant military power in the world, and this is something that we can do. And I think they're definitely trying to push towards regime change. Like if Iran was not a theocracy and it was a democracy, I don't think people would really care about them having a nuclear weapon because we have other nations with nuclear weapons. Like you said, India and Pakistan. That's why I honestly wasn't as too concerned because they had elected leaders. It just concerns me that Iran would have one. And so I think we honestly align with like how we feel about it. I just felt like Israel maybe could have done something similar and we wouldn't have to get involved. But if it truly leads to a ceasefire and this doesn't lead to more escalation, then I guess it was okay in the end. Like obviously to what Sam was saying, the human aspect of it, it's always sad, but that I don't know, it's a reality with war, obviously. Like people unfortunately get caught in that and it's terrible. But that's just a reality of a regime like that oppresses their people.
So I have a question, I guess, then, as far as who should be allowed to have nukes. Because the fear, or what's been keeping the peace for so long, is mutually assured destruction, right? But if you're bombing somebody who doesn't have nuclear weapons, then there isn't a mutually assured destruction situation, because if you bomb them, they won't be able to nuke you back, right? So would a potential solution to a lot of war be to like open source nuclear weapons? Like everybody gets a nuclear weapon?
No,
Well,
you have to earn.
Go ahead, Austin.
That's why that is what the negotiation was actually. That's what we've been trying to do with Iran for a long time with these negotiations. You have to earn your way into getting a nuke. You have to deserve it. So you have to meet these thresholds. You have to treat your people right. Because we're the dominant power, we get to sort of determine what the rules on the playing field are for what gets you to earn that nuke. But ultimately, you have to show your good behavior. You have to earn your way into that. And sure, maybe that's not, I mean, it's not fair, but like life isn't fair. We get to call the shots. But we are willing to negotiate and allow countries to make those steps toward development if they prove to us that they will be an honest broker and a good partner in on the world stage. And Iran was not doing that, and so they've lost their opportunity for the last 20 years or whatever, like since they've been trying to do it, and now they've really played their cards wrong, because now
Square
supposedly
one.
they've lost
Mhm.
all their progress.
Well, it's kind of like what we talked about in the past. Remember how I said it's silly, like in economics, they use um, they always go under the presumption that everyone's a rational actor, and that's how everything works. Is like as
Yeah.
long as everyone's a rational actor, it works. That's the biggest problem with mutually assured destruction. It works when everyone's a rational actor and they don't want to ruin like the world. But because like once one nuke goes off, it's probably the end of humanity. It doesn't work when you have extremists that run a regime in a nation. That's why it hasn't worked with Iran. There's extremism that runs within their nation and their government that's in control currently. Not saying the people are all like that. I'm sure they aren't. But when your government is an extremist theocracy, it's kind of dangerous to put. We don't, like what Austin said, when we can kind of dictate who gets and who doesn't get it, that's not going to be a country that we're going to allow nuclear weapons.
Thank you for making an appearance on the show, Will.
There you go. The people wanted more of that cat. Now they got all of it. All right. Well,
Wait,
shall I?
So where do
interesting
you?
point that I just learned. Sorry to, but the nuclear weapon states, which is what is from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which allows you to earn the right to have a nuke, permanently closed its doors in 1967. If you were not one of the nuclear weapon states as of 1967, you are permanently banned from acquiring nuclear weapons. So is that right, that like we're basically saying nobody is allowed to have them after this date?
I think North Korea.
I don't know.
Chat says there is no upgrade path, no application, no standards you can meet to gain the right. The system is explicitly discriminatory by design. That seems wrong to me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of more like what terms we dictate, like what Austin was saying. I like I said, there's some watchdog, some nuclear watchdog. I'm not sure what the organization's name is.
NEIA.
Something
right?
like that. But yeah, there's a nuclear watchdog that basically goes into each of these countries and ensures that who knows exactly what they're looking at. I'm sure there's some sort of oversight that we're supposed to be able to see what they can look into, but they are supposed to be the watchdog to make sure that no one's like abusing their nuclear weapons and like there's not proliferating their weapons.
Yeah, that
IAEA, International Atomic Energy
I think,
Agency.
Sam, that's more of
Yeah.
a I don't know. I don't even know what you call that, 'cause it's not really pressed. It's not forced, because Pakistan got their. I'm looking this up right now. Pakistan got theirs in 1998. North Korea, I'm guessing it was after 67.
It was 2006 for North
Mm.
Korea.
Well, Israel has nukes.
Israel's got theirs.
Never confirmed first test. Widely believed to assess between 80 and 90 warheads. They're secretive about their nukes.
Who is?
In North
Israel?
Korea?
No, that's Israel.
Oh.
Yeah, Israel's like the big.
Interesting.
That's to the point of what Austin said about how we kind of determine who gets nukes. Like we're like,
We
oh,
gave
cool,
Israel nukes."
Israel's our ally, so you can have nukes. But
Yeah.
it's not very apparent to
Okay.
everybody on if they pass the rules of should they have a nuke or not.
That's interesting. I feel like this
Yeah.
is important context for people to have as they're learning about,
Hmm.
because now everybody's, okay, we just banned the nuclear sites in Iran, like for building a nuclear bomb. What's a nuclear bomb? And like, who has nuclear bombs? So I think these are questions that people are asking, or at least should be aware of. Like, I didn't even know until Austin, you said that they were like trying to earn the right. I had no idea that people were allowed to earn the right. I just thought it was like a secret that was somehow kept, and they just didn't know how to do it yet.
Well, it kind of is.
I don't think that's a
kind of
thing.
how it works. It's kind of like, oh, the U.S. just keeps tabs on everybody because they're kind of also just like a
You
watchdog
can't
of the
really
whole
keep a
world.
secret.
Yeah, the U.S. is just always keeping tabs. That's how they found out that Iran's like enriching uranium, right? Like they try to keep tabs on who's has access to uranium and like how it's being transported, and then they always have spy planes and satellites that are like checking in on these military sites to see if they find it, and then they, I'm sure, approach these governments and say, "Hey, do you have nuclear weapons or do you have uranium that you're trying to enrich or something?" And they deny it. They're like, "Well, here's our proof," and then
They
it
hand them the manila
escalates,
envelope. They see,
and then
and
they
then
drop
it
the
leads,
picture
buster
of
on them.
yeah, and then
yeah,
it leads to where we are.
right. It's a picture of their nuclear site, a picture of, the government leader with a mistress, whatever else we've
Yeah, you've
got
got all
on them.
kinds of leverage you could pull before you had to pull out the big nuke card. But I want to ask you guys then, back to the question that I had. Is it right to not allow people to get nuclear weapons? Because then it puts you in this position where it's not mutually assured destruction. And then you're able to have power disparities, which, if you're a good country or a bad country, you can put your thumb on a lot of these countries pretty heavily, because at the end of the day you've got the ultimate card and that they don't, so they pretty much have to. It feels like a means to slavery, really, at the end of the day, is to force other countries to do your bidding whether or not they like it, because they don't have nukes and you do. So I think that leads to a lot of wars, a lot of oppression and pain. So I'm wondering if, like, the real problem is that Iran doesn't have nukes, and that maybe they should have nukes, and that not only them but everybody should, and then you wouldn't have or would you have a prisoner's dilemma then?
You're
I don't
kind
know.
of,
It's just an
you know what you're
interesting question.
describing right now? You're describing the Cold War. Like everything you just
But
described
global.
is that, I mean, the Cold War was global. Like that was the Cold War. Was
So explain to me
essentially,
the Cold War as if I wasn't really sure about it.
We're not gonna dive into the Cold War on this pod.
well, the Cold War post 1945. The United States wanted
Oh,
their
we're doing
influence to
this.
spread, and just simple terms. And Russia wanted their influence to spread, and they fought a lot of proxy wars by supporting other nations, not putting our own boots on the ground. So, like in South Korea, North Korea, right? It was just Korea at the time, and the U.S. supported South Korea. Russia supported North Korea. They ended up splitting, essentially trying to spread their own ideologies. Like Russia was trying to, or the Soviet Union was trying to expand communism. The United States is trying to expand democracy because they believed if democracy spreads, you don't have to worry about nuclear weapons and you don't have to worry about as many enemies because everyone's going to think the same way as us, right? That
Mm-hmm.
was kind of the concept. And so what you were describing right there was kind of that is like, oh, if we have more people of like minds, then nuclear weapons, it's okay if you have them because mutual assured destruction, everyone will act rationally, no one will ever use their nukes. That was like kind of the whole idea. But now with nukes, I think the general stance by the United States is status quo. Not,
Let's not spread it.
yeah, let's not spread it. For a long time, I think Obama tried to do a denuclearization pact of some sort. They were trying to get countries to agree to reduce their arsenals, essentially. I'm not sure how effective that really was because they have to like get Russia and China to do it, which, who knows how successful that really is. They're not going to admit openly how many nukes each of them have. Um, so I think they kind of just like we don't want anybody else to get nukes at this point. And if you're like let's look at it from the lens of like our biggest adversaries, Russia and China. I don't think they particularly care about the nations in the Middle East like acquiring nuclear weapons unless they're being actively oppressed by the democratic nations around. So if the US was
Right.
like, we're going to invade Iran, then Russia, who's their ally, would be like, no, like you're not doing that. But I don't think they particularly care if we're just like saying you can't have them because we're not actively trying to like change their way. We're not doing what we did in Afghanistan or Iraq, where like we're actually setting boots on the ground and trying to like regime change like what they did during the Cold War as well. We're kind of just like, you guys continue to live your lifestyle, but we don't want you to have nukes.
Yeah, we've had this rule for a long time. You're crossing the line, and we're gonna stand against that line every day, but we're not trying to do anything more than that. At least I think that's how the U.S. is posturing right now, and I hope that that's doesn't devolve. And I think some of that comes from Iran and from the Middle East to not as people are concerned about destabilizing the region, because I think one wrong button sort of comes back to what we were saying earlier about feeling like, Justin, when you said with chess, I'm sick and tired of feeling like I make one bad move and the whole fucking thing's over. Like, I think that's what we're coming down to is like, okay, nobody put yourself into a situation where this just snowballs out of control.
granted, if you want to put on a little tinfoil here, this whole situation has been a nice base for a Bush-like escalation. For, whatever reason, let's say there is an attack on the United States, mall bombing or like some just small
Iran
event.
does have a lot of oil.
You can see, I don't know if we would need to go for oil. USA is pretty good on oil now. But it does provide the basis for, all right, we have to go in here because of X. Like, I don't fully believe that. I don't want to believe that. But before this conflict, you didn't really have something like that, right? No one was really, these are the boogeymen and they could do something bad for us. Now, there are a lot of people that are like, Iran's going to have sleeper cells and they're going to do something now. Like, hopefully not. I don't think this was the reason. I hope it was all rational.
I don't think so. I think it was. If you look at Trump's history, one thing he's been very consistent on was that invading Iraq was a bad idea. He's been outspokenly against that decision for like consistently forever. And I don't think that I really don't think that he wants to get into anything more than what this was. That's just my opinion. But
I will say people can be corrupted. So, if he's living his whole life feeling like it was a bad decision, if for some reason there's an ulterior motive for doing it and that presses on you, I think even, President of the United States can be corrupted into doing something, that they morally up to that point.
You only get a third term through an emergency. It's how I would say he gets a third term. But yeah, I don't think he's doing.
I'll make an argument
chance.
though that
he saw a good deal. Like someone presented him a good deal and said, "This is a win."
It's oil. It's
Right.
oil. I'm going to come back to my core stance on this show that it's money and it's inflation that's the problem. We are headed into, Austin, the biggest AI boom that the universe will ever see in all of history, which is going to require a crazy amount of energy. We need energy. Energy is represented in dollars, and the dollar represents oil. The dollar is basically oil. That's what the dollar is based in. And I think we're going to Iran because Iran has oil.
I don't think so.
I have a simpler explanation in my mind. We know Donald Trump is he likes to flex his muscles and he likes to show off. The guy literally held a military parade on his birthday. I know it was a coincidence that lined up with his
That happened in the 3
birthday.
weeks, Austin.
That did happen while we were
That was,
gone.
I know, we have to address
He
all
He
that
also
stuff.
wanted it in 2016 on
Yes,
his birthday.
he's
so
wanted
there's
it for a
precedent.
long time. I know it was actually their like 250th anniversary or 200th anniversary or something, but it also just happened to line up with his birthday. Let's not forget that. And then it was a week later, a couple days later when we bombed them. I'm sure someone presented this idea as we can flex our muscles here and show them, because that's kind of part of the reason I'm sure we did it, to say, look how powerful we are. Like, don't mess around and try to get nuclear weapons. I'm sure he's like, oh, this is perfect. Like, we can show how strong we are, and we can also potentially prevent them from building up their nuclear system. So I think that's more realistic of what happened. I'm not sure if it was super calculated on his part. I'm sure it might have been calculated by the military and the people who vetted the options there, and I'm sure his was like, oh, this sounds like a good option. Let's go with it.
Well, there's a corollary, right? So the one argument I heard that what this does for the United States is send a warning to like a China about Taiwan. So like, hey, look, we didn't just let Iran do what they wanted. We stepped in when things got serious. So
we
look
will
at
pull the trigger.
Like, oh, you're about to invade Taiwan. Guess what? You talk about oil being important. Taiwan is way more important than the oil in Iran. So
Ships.
I think it was kind of an example of, all right, like you take that step too far, you're going to get whacked. At least I hope it is, because we're going to have to do something. You cannot let Taiwan fall. You cannot. Like, this is way worse than oil. So I'm hoping this was
You
kind
still
of
need something to power it, though. Like, that's most important, but you need the energy at the end of the day.
USA just produces a ton of oil, and we could
Drill,
get it from
baby,
like
drill.
Saudi Arabia. Like, we
Probably
have other
also
trade
like
allies in the region.
Apparently,
It's-
oil stocks did not move really. I was
You know,
listening
Well,
to
it's
I saw as
interesting.
something.
They
long
went
as
up a little bit.
Yeah, it really didn't move after the bombing, which is surprising.
I heard that we have sufficient reserves globally that this shouldn't impact us if it is a sustained event, or as long as the port of Hormuz, maybe, or
Hormuz,
something like that,
Hormuz.
Hormuz, yeah.
Hormuz isn't blocked. As long as that happens, then it shouldn't affect oil. But if this turns into something more sustained, I think that it likely could. And then it will have a national security interest in opening up the oil supplies of the world. But if I can, real quick, just say I was talking to somebody who was talking about their idea of getting a gun just for self defense. They had recently had their first child, don't own any guns, but wanted to get a pistol just for like in case somebody broke in, they could teach their wife to fire the weapon and handle it safely, and they would have it in a locked case under their bed just in case. But and then what was interesting was they said to fire the gun into the wall. Like, you don't actually have to shoot at somebody, but know how to fire the gun, pull the trigger into the wall so that the person on the other side of the wall knows that you will pull the trigger and that you have a gun. I'm not going to go through that door because I know this person is capable of pulling the trigger. So I'm thinking, Justin, to your point, of flying in and saying, like, hey, look, China, we just pulled the trigger. We just fired our gun into the wall. We literally dropped these bombs into 200 feet of concrete and exploded it. Like, everybody's like, who cares? Maybe they didn't even have nukes there. It's like, we just fired the wall. Like, we will use these weapons at the same time as getting Iran's oil as we move our way across the map.
I like that example. I never thought about that. Now I gotta take that away. Like, do I just shoot into the wall?
Shoot into the wall. That's the takeaway here.
Thinking as a criminal.
All right. Well, that was a really nice deep dive on this new conflict. We'll see where it goes. Matthew, it is 9:04. I don't know what your hard out is here.
I got like another 23 minutes. I'm good at like 9:30, so go ahead.
All right. Well, then I want to do one of your topics. Do you
I'll be
want
right back.
declining
I'm gonna
birth
get a drink.
rates or U.S. steel?
I don't know. Which one are you guys more interested in? I don't have like an article or anything for you. They both are, I've just like read up on them and both are interesting topics to me. I feel like we probably can talk more about the declining birth rates. I could just mention the U.S. Steel thing if you guys want.
I love declining birth rate
Yeah, let's
conversations.
talk about that. I'll just mention the U.S. Steel thing. U.S. Steel, if no one saw this, because there was a lot. This happened right around the time with Trump doing his military parade, the No Kings protests, and the Minnesota elected officials being assassinated. It was
Yes,
like
that
all
happened
within
as well.
like
A lot
all
happened.
within like 5 days. So this one kind of went under the radar. But if people remember, back in 2023, Nippon Steel, which is the largest steel producer in Japan, tried to acquire U.S. Steel, the largest producer of steel in the United States, but it was blocked by Biden in 2024, I believe,
Yeah.
because due to national security concerns, it being one of our vital industries. They didn't want it to be owned by another nation, essentially, even though Japan's one of our allies. Um, and so they put kind of kaput on that. And even Trump like campaigned on that. He didn't want Nippon Steel to acquire one of like the United States' national industries. But after some negotiations and talks with Nippon Steel, they did work out a deal. But it's like kind of this unique setup where they it's not nationalized, but you could kind of argue it's a little nationalized where so Nippon acquired them for $14 billion, but the US government got they called it like a golden share, which essentially gives the President of the United States the ability to um, assign basically make a couple like executive decisions. So like if they ever wanted to try and move any sort of like um if they ever tried to move any employees like out if they tried to like outsource work or something, they would have to like consult with like I guess the president or with this golden share. It's like kind of unique where like he can designate someone to make these decisions. So it doesn't have to be the president. It can be like just some person that I guess gets elected or he picks to like make these decisions. And basically he's like a board member. It's like you have like a honorary seat on the board and like they can make a bunch of decisions like US Steel has to remain a US CEO. So they made a bunch of concessions essentially to acquire them. So it did get acquired by Nippon Steel, but there are like these basically just like safety measures to ensure that it stays within the United States. They don't like move the headquarters of the U.S. Steel portion, um, and like the name, they can't change the name. There's a bunch of other things. I don't have them all up right now, but it was just I thought it was interesting to see that like they bestowed this upon the United States presidency. So it's not Trump, it's just like whoever the president's going to be in
Mm-hmm.
the future, which is just a little bit feels like nationalizing a massive private industry to a degree, considering they have a lot of say in what goes on. So I thought that was just intriguing. It's slightly socialist, which I'm sure most capitalists would be up in arms if they dug a little deeper into that.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I did
there
not
was a
see
lot
this.
going on, and I
U.S.
think it
Steel
got
is the
missed.
first modern use of golden share by the U.S. government.
Hmm.
What do you think about that, Austin?
I don't know. I mean, I need to do some more research on this. I think steel is an interesting industry. Like, do we want to maintain? I don't know. I'm torn on this. I want us to maintain control. Like, I
Hmm.
want us to have this
Industry.
produced here and this industry like be part of America. Um, but I also recognize that like we are maybe we can't produce.
And that's why I didn't want to discuss this one too much because I know you guys had researched it. I just thought it's something people should be aware of and maybe just think about it
Yeah.
because it's an interesting kind of case study that we've never really seen before.
All it comes down to is like how you rank the thing. It kind of goes back to the last. I mean, it's kind of the last conversation. If you start to take all of these things, you could do oil, you could do chips, you could do steel. What are the vital things that like we need to maintain control over the production of? And how do you start to rank those? And how does that change over time? So I could see you like thinking a lot of people were especially would say, during the tariff conversations, it was like, we need to have steel here because steel is a vital resource to our national security. So like, is that still true today in 2025? Are there more important vital industries to national security? How do you rank those? How do you prioritize? Like, in today's day and age, would you rather have chip manufacturing or would you rather have the ability to have steel because you need steel to make, you know, aircraft carriers?
Can we do a once around the table on if anybody has a top priority, if it's steel or chips or whatever it may be? I can go
Solar.
first. Yeah. Solar, yeah.
Wind
You want to
power.
maintain all the wind.
Wind is your top
We're gonna
priority as a
produce all the
country?
wind.
I like it. Very peaceful airbender.
All right,
So you
Sam,
think? Oh, go ahead, Sam.
you start.
Okay.
Did you have an answer,
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was just thinking about being an airbender, and then my name is Monk. I just kind of feel very airbendery today. I think that's why my name is Monk. But I guess top priority would probably be probably something in the cyberspace. I guess like what Justin was saying, like control of information. I think your comments about destabilizing kind of scary, and I feel like I'm always nervous with the AI conversation about the quality and access to information, because that's, for me
Chips.
as a rational human being, like how I make decisions. So I need to be able to rely on my information.
So you'd pick like chips, like as an
I
industry.
guess as an industry, chips, or I mean, yeah, I guess chips, but it's it's broader than that because it's the way things are communicated to, and like the systems that are in place that govern who gets access to what. So I think it's broader than chips, but that's a big part of it, like internet based or communications based, technology based.
Yeah, I mean, if like we had to pick like an industry that we find is vital to like the United States' economic success and, hopeful like supremacy. Um, Chips, I guess, is a big one. But currently, I guess like we aren't the leading producer of chips. It's Taiwan. So, I mean, that's working fine up until, like what Justin was saying, if China decides to ever take action on that. Steel, I mean, I'm happy that they kept it connected to the US. Like that is a vital resource. Like steel production is huge. Like we use steel in everything. So if we weren't the producer of it, that would be a little concerning, just strategically and for national security. You want to be able to produce the building blocks for all infrastructure that like run our nation. If somehow everything ever went wrong with Japan, they're like, oh, we're gonna stop production, that's a problem. So I think steel was an important one, and I'm glad that we maintained some semblance of control there. But I don't know how much it really is. It's just like any other merger. A lot of promises are made, and then things can change very quickly, or they change slowly over time. You don't notice. So that would be one of the concerns with this deal.
Chips.
Chips.
Easy.
Austin, you have one, and I'm going to change my answer from chips if you're going to take that, Justin.
What about agriculture? What do you consider that one?
I know. I was thinking corn. I'll say, maybe that, or just control over maintaining an open internet. Maybe that's where you were going, Sam. I thought you were going to say TikTok for a second. But sort of the way that information is dispersed and the freedom to share information and to understand different points of view is potentially our most important asset.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it, is even from our a government's perspective and our ability to feel like we're represented in government, and that our government is being transparent with us about what they're doing and why they're doing it, and then our ability to trust the systems that are governing us, so that you can have trust in the information that you get, and that TikTok isn't subtly mind washing me to believe something, or that it's not being spied on, those kinds of things. That's broader than information or chips. It's that kind of, that trust. Maybe trust. I'm going to go with trust.
Okay, this is not a question. The question was what industry, and we're I just want to trust my government. You're just okay, we've deviated a little bit here.
That's our greatest capital. That's the thing that we have the most, is trust. We need to reorient our national mindset from being oil, from being money or power, to trust.
It was a good topic. It was a nice topic, Matthew. Thank you for bringing that up.
I guess to tie it back to that real quick is, I want to trust that this golden chair, that this person is acting in the best interests of the nation and not using it as some money peg that I'm playing around the chessboard or influencing any other national things. It's more so just, I want trust in that situation. I want to believe that is not anything shady.
All right.
Yeah. I'm also not overly concerned with it because it's not like steel is a highly innovative industry, or there's not going to be a lot of new steel competitors and startups coming into the market.
And I don't think it's World War II where we need 1 million tanks and ammunition rounds. I think it's more cyber and two
$25 drone will kill a whole battalion or a whole squad of people.
Two things. It's Japan, who's one of our biggest allies. So again, not a really big concern. The interesting part that I thought about it was, and I think this is the biggest takeaway of it, is it is slightly nationalizing a massive private industry.
Yeah,
and that is something we don't typically see, especially in the United States.
And if it's successful, should we consider doing it with more industries?
There you go. I mean, people might lean in that direction.
We did it with the autos. Yeah. We did it with the autos. I would argue we do it with airlines to some extent. I think... I don't know. There's entanglements of this kind of. The government puts its pause.
Although nationalization leads to poor management, typically, right? So
for sure.
Gonna run.
Why is U.S. Steel even being sold? Does it suck?
Because they're not good at their jobs. That's probably why.
They're losing money.
So it doesn't work.
It wasn't nationalized. Yeah. It's now being nationalized slightly. It was a private industry completely.
Okay.
And now it's slightly, you can maybe say it's being nationalized in this sense by having the U.S. government involved. But to be determined.
All right. Turn us to declining birth rates while we have you for 10 more minutes here.
Yeah, I've just been thinking a lot about this because it feels like it comes up a lot in the news. So if there's ever a slow news cycle or something, You always hear about declining birth rates, whether it's in the United States or Japan has it really badly,
Korea.
Korea. It seems highly developed nations have it much more relevant than in less developed nations. Um, Probably due to like access to birth control. I think there's also just a lot of evidence with more money leads to just less children. Also, in more developed nations, women tend to work more than in others, so that also tends to lead to less children being born. And so I was just thinking about it if because I don't honestly know like it always kind of slants in this direction that it's like a bad thing because for capitalism to work you generally have to have a lot of producers of labor. At least that's how like an economist would view like a birth rate going down is like, oh, we're losing inputs to labor, so this is bad for the nation because there's less people that are able to do these jobs, less basically less capital. But we're also evolving now where, and I know I don't like to steer us towards AI, but I kind of have to here, and I know Austin has to make Austin
I
smile,
knew Austin's answer before
but
he even said anything. I know every word he's gonna say.
but with artificial intelligence becoming more prevalent, it's going to lead to less jobs for humans in general. So, I mean, having a smaller population isn't necessarily a problem in that aspect. Um, but I also wonder if it doesn't lead to as many lost jobs, will like I hear a lot of people, especially our age, because we're all younger and we're kind of at the age where kids are starting to be born within like our friends are having kids or we're having kids or whatever. People always talk about childcare and how expensive childcare is because, if both parents are working, they need someone to take care of their kid, and people have moved, especially since COVID. But this has been happening all in the 20th century, in the 21st century. It's like people have just moved more, and younger people and tend to not necessarily live as close to their families anymore, so they don't necessarily have like a grandparent or aunt or somebody who can help like take care of their children. If like both spouses are working. Um, and so people need to pay for childcare, but childcare is very expensive because you're basically paying for someone to take care of your child for, 8 hours of the day. And there's just not as much of that in supply. So I wonder if there would ever be a time where the US government would see it as an asset to start funding childcare. Because I know private institutions have started to do it. Like that's been a selling point for some certain, if you can get a job with somebody that like provides childcare, like that's definitely a selling point. Like that's what some employers are doing. But if like we ever got to a place where like we're not having enough kids or and the government's like we have to finally step in and like incentivize because I know Trump has tried to do a couple programs to like incentivize people to have children, but it's more like tax breaks and stuff, and that's not necessarily you don't see that necessarily that outwardly like it's something kind of on the backside that you see. And so if they ever felt like it got to a drastic place, would they ever consider like, oh, we need to start funding childcare for so that people can feel like they can still work and they can still also have children? Like, will that ever become like a vital need for like our nation? It's an interesting topic in my opinion, and I just wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on it.
So are you worried about it or no?
I personally no. I'm honestly not that concerned about it because I think with artificial intelligence and less jobs being created, I don't necessarily know if we need as much labor as we used to. My only concern would be, though, is like what type of society do we move to if we have less people that aren't, if we're not at a one-for-one replacement, like what's happening in like Korea, where it's like they're having less kids than people that are
Not
still
even
alive.
here. Every developed country is falling below the
We're
I think
below
replacement rate.
one,
replacement's like
we are
it's
Yeah,
like
we're not.
Yes.
2.2.
We're
It's
below
not
the replacement
it's
value.
not just one. You need like 2.2 or something like that.
to reply.
Every
Why
couple
is
needs to
that?
have two because you have a
People
Oh,
man and a
for
die
woman.
without
two.
having kids.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, if there's a couple having some, yeah, so I guess you have to have two because,
We have
yeah.
like 1.7 or something
Yeah,
here.
so we're
Yeah,
below
it's a pretty
replacement,
big
right?
concern just statistically. Like if you look at the graph, it's pretty alarming how quickly population drop occurs. Like it's sort of nothing, 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 and then it reaches a critical point where it just drops off a cliff, and then like you can't possibly replace yourselves because you can't support yourselves anymore.
So, like, I guess if we're looking at it from the side of like, what's the problem with that? One is there's just like less producers of goods, right? Like labor, like we said. that can be an
And what does that
issue.
mean? That means less producers of tax revenues,
Less
which
money for the
means
government.
less dollars to take care of the old
And
people.
that's what I was going to say. There will also now be way more old people and less money for them and less people to take care of them. So that leads to a very old population that is now living with their families or having to be taken care of by other people. And so that does lead to
And once they
issues.
all die, it becomes a much smaller group of very old people with even fewer people to take care of this even smaller group. And that just like continues on and on and on until there's just not really anybody around anymore.
And that leads to Social Security, as always. It's like
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
impending doom that no one ever wants to settle. But like with a less, with a even smaller population, Social Security definitely goes bankrupt.
I'm gonna take a little, um, I don't know if it's optimistic, but the next big industry, or the next industry to figure out home care robotics for older generations is going to be $1 trillion industry. And I think that's where we're going with this. Obviously the AI buzzword, but where does innovation come from? It comes from seeing a need because there's a lack of something, right? That is like your guys are saying, the biggest bomb that is waiting to go off. And I don't see how United Healthcare, like some giant industry, does not just pour billions of dollars into, once the robotics are there, into these home nurses that are, home robot nurses and stuff that is going to be able to fill that void from the lack of people in the age that can care for these individuals. I mean, I feel like that's what's going to happen.
So are you not concerned? Or you are concerned?
I'm not concerned. I mean, not really. I look at it from, well, one way to look at it is from the humanity point of view, and I guess that is concerning. Like, if you think humans should go on for millions of years, like, then yes, in theory, every single country becomes developed, and then without a new way of thinking, the humans are going to die out. I mean, we've seen the trend. You could argue that maybe there's going to be new technologies where you just are, like, not clones, but like artificial fertilization clinics and like stuff where people are being made. Like, I mean, that is uh, kind of like Black Mirror type level stuff, but I think maybe
Not out of
maybe it goes in
question.
that direction. It's not out of the question, obviously, because we do technically have the science for that already. So yeah, it possibly goes that way. I mean, that would be the dark side of. Oh, again, you can argue that it's dark. Maybe it's not the dark side. Maybe that's how things are meant to be. I mean, I'm not going to be the one to judge, but so I'm not worried because I don't think it's going to be. I think they're going to have this figured out in the next 25 years. I think it's going to be the pace at which things are moving right now. But I don't think we'll see intergalactic travel, but I think we'll figure out a lot of shit on Earth that's going to be really cool.
So you're not concerned. Sam, where do you line on this?
It seems like a pretty clear path to me of heading straight to a simulation. Everything that you guys are saying, it just seems like that's where we're headed. We got fewer and fewer people. Justin, I like the robotics idea, $1 trillion industry for robotics home healthcare. I think that's going to be a short-lived industry though, because you're going to have a ton of people who need home healthcare because there's not enough people replacing them. But then very quickly, not a lot of people needing home
That's a
healthcare.
fair point.
So it's like all of a sudden it's like the biggest industry ever, and then it's gone. And I think that where we're headed is maybe artificial in like conception and you grow people, or maybe where we're seeing a lot more of our discussions on the pod and just society in general heading towards artificial intelligence, and we just sort of go into a digital kind of situation where we've got all
Metaverse.
of these data centers that are being built nearby. We've got simulated speech through ChatGPT. You've got simulated visuals through VO3 with Google. You can have like simulated auditory
Well,
stuff.
Neuralink and like has.
It's been proven
Yeah.
over and over again that we can like like simulate what the brain is doing. So it seems like we either go on a biology route or we go on a technology route. And seeing as we've invested our entire lives on the advancement of technology for the past 60 years, it seems like we're probably going on the technology route, headed towards a simulated reality that solves all
I
of
don't
our
think
problems.
I don't think it's been totally ignored. I don't think biology's been totally ignored because one of my other articles bring up a little biology level stuff, but there's still some hope for the biology path, Sam. I actually like the biology path if we can
I'm
figure it
on it.
out how to
Yeah.
raise human intelligence above where it is
When
right now.
when you say
But
when you say biology path, you mean technology through biology though, right? Or do you just mean like people having more kids?
no. Like I think we're talking about like unlocking more of your brain and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
yeah. So
like
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So you basically both are out on the idea of just like let's just incentivize people to have more kids.
I
Well, no, I think that's an important part of it. No, I think that's an important part of it is to like increase that population level, but maybe not necessarily just like an ever expanding like exponential growth like we've been demanding over time, but more like um, I guess having kids in terms of like different ways of thinking. Like you can have kids outside of like your actual children, but more so just like you have this like spreading like generation of biology that I think behaves differently. You envision a different world. Who knows what it's going to look like? But it just seems like if it's either simulation or we try and figure that path out. So
Where do you lie, Austin?
I think that this is the greatest threat to humanity
Hmm.
that we've ever seen. I think
it's
we
very
have a
serious.
responsibility as humans to preserve humanity. Even as much as I love technology and the idea that robots are going to be sitting here with us and smarter than us and all of the like, what's the point in all of it if humans die out and we don't get to enjoy the fruits of all of our labor? So I think that it's a serious issue. I think the more that we're seeing this common trend of every developed country moving in the same way, we're seeing rising debt in the world because of this. We can't afford to take care of all these people. The result is people are going to have to work longer years, which we're not talking about the other spectrum here of the other huge industry that is about to skyrocket in longevity and making people live longer. I think is also
Mm-hmm.
a huge opportunity. But that'll mean that people will have to, work longer, be adding to society for longer and longer, um, because we're going to need the revenue to, like, we're going to need the tax dollars and the revenue to support all these people. I was just reading here, Japan sells more adult diapers than baby diapers. Fun fact
That's
for you for
crazy.
the day. Um, so I really am quite worried about this, and I hope that we're able to figure out. I don't know what the incentive is because I don't see honestly like a real path that's going to change this. I've only experienced it kind of going the other direction of people wanting to delay having kids longer and longer, not having kids at all, and being more. I guess it's like we're so distracted, and we're so interested in um, the ease of our own lives, probably that we've lost sight of the fact that we do have responsibilities as humans to make sure that we stay a population and a civilization.
Well spoken.
That's where I stand.
I like that's we have a wide range of viewpoints on this, and I don't really know where I line up on it. I don't know if it's such a long term picture that I don't really know. Like we've never seen a nation get to a place where it's like Japan, like you said, is a good example of like, oh, they're selling more old people diapers than children diapers, but has it impacted their economy enough yet where there's been like drastic issues? Or is it just more like, oh, it's the impending doom, we're running out? And so like until I see an example of it, it's hard for me to have like a strict opinion. But I think I lean more towards Austin. I think the government at some point is going to try and do more to incentivize people to have more kids because if it ever does get to a place where they feel like we're running out of funds and we're having more people, like that's why nobody wants to touch Social Security. I mean, look at France. They all those people protested for like, what was it, like a month or
They're
longer.
good at writing.
Yeah, they're known for their protests. They love it. But they protest forever because I think it was Macron was just like, sorry, like somebody has to be the bad guy here and say we're gonna have to raise the age. People are living longer. People don't want to face the facts, but we can't just pick an arbitrary age of 65 and say, here's your government money, but you're also going to now get this for 30 years because you're now living to be 95. Like it's either like you can take it at 65, we're going to then cut you off when you hit that age so that it's this consistent for everybody. Or if it's a general trend that people are getting older, we then have to move back the age because now you still want the money, but we have less people to give it to you. So it's either like you can't have it both. You can't have your cake and eat it too, sort of
I don't.
thing.
I think the government's missing some easy opportunities to do this though, and Austin's gonna hate this, but like some countries require, X amount of weeks for maternity and paternal leave. Something small that, you say, all right, you have to allow 3 weeks. And some companies, a lot of companies do, but it's not mandatory yet. Just like small things, I mean, small, it probably, oh, it impacts your business a lot. Sure. Okay, fine. But if this is the pressing issue, just bite the bullet and like this is one of those you could argue this is national security if you really want to go down that route and that like this is something that's going to take down the country in 50 years, then it's a national security issue and you have to take it seriously and be willing to sacrifice your bottom line to help out this issue. I don't understand, like, yeah, because what you were saying earlier, Matt, capitalism kind of thrives on people. If we're running out of people, what happens to late stage capitalism where it runs out of inputs? It has to be replaced with something, and all we're looking at is our AI at this point. But like Austin's saying, that's kind of sad for humanity. So
I think this
If I
kind
could,
of, go ahead, Sam.
I was just gonna say, put a nice spin on it. Maybe we get lucky, and we develop AI and anti-aging technology quickly enough that we just get to freeze everybody who's alive right now in a place where we don't need more people because we've got AI, but we can also live forever. And it's just like it's sort of we've frozen ourselves.
biology
at a-
route
one.
still.
Well, I think in general, this issue falls along the lines of like climate change, where a lot of people
Mhm.
just don't care because they don't think it's going to impact them personally. Because this is a future issue. It's going to impact, next generations. So I think it's one of those that no one's going to do anything about it until they start to see actual like impacts to their own lives, Like then they've kind of done it with climate change. Like they've made a lot of things, they've impacted a lot of things. They've tried to like slow it down, but a lot of people still don't take it very seriously. And I think it's the same thing that will be with this issue. Is like, people are like, oh, that sounds like a good idea to have more kids, but like, prove to me we have to do it. So they're like, what benefits am I getting to have more kids? It's expensive to buy a house. It's like there's always an excuse not to have children. So until people get the benefit from it, if they don't want to have kids, they're not gonna. So I don't think it's gonna change.
It's capitalism. You get a child tax credit. Guess what? Now your daycare goes up by that much tax credit. It's the
Exactly.
sickening thing about capitalism.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, there's
Sorry, I have to drop, but I've enjoyed this conversation immensely.
thank you for joining us for episode 10.
And
We appreciated that you were able to stop by, Matthew.
We will stay in touch as always and keep each other and the
wait, we're not
Sips
stopping, are we? I thought
informed.
I was just
No,
leaving.
but I thought it'd be like a nice little like, mini sign off.
All right. I'll talk to you guys later. This was fun. See ya.
See, Matt.
Go replace yourself with some babies. Get out there on the streets.
Or
Will
on
do.
AI. Get the chip.
Go.
Think about that though.
Uh,
What if? Let me connect these little red strings for me. Let me give you a conspiracy theory right after Matt leaves, just to go on my AI. Just is this plausible? That's all I'm looking for here on this conspiracy. Is
Open-minded.
we've got Elon Musk trying to get to Mars, right? Terraforming. Haven't really ever done it before. Maybe it's possible. Maybe it's not. We've got some simulation kind of ideas going with AI. What if you hosted your brain on a server, maybe through a Neuralink type of technology, and with the data center that's being built conveniently near your hometown, wherever you're listening? I'm sure you have a data center near you. So you host your brain there, and then you send off to Mars some kind of artificially cloned embryonic human that then is also chipped and accesses your uploaded brain back on Earth. And now you've got basically a bunch of workers that you just shipped off to a new planet who can then operate and like go and dig in their tunnels and like trade with each other and do other things, but it's maybe hosted somewhere else on a server of some sort using technology that ChatGPT, OpenAI is developing, and you're funding using oil from Iran, and is it plausible?
Why go through the trouble of sending the embryo? Why not just?
I mean, then it's a philosophical question of what is a robot, or what are you as biology?
Yeah. Well, I think
you're really just
what a
mechanics, like your genes shifting around. Like, what is life? It's really just like robotics. You take in fuel, you do this thing. It's just very complicated.
What do they call it? Cyborg? Is that where we're? Is that basically like once we start getting the chips, do we become cyborgs? Or am I misunderstanding the definition of that?
I think cyborg.
I'm mainly
sci-fi.
looking at Justin. I figured that he would kind of know about
is a
these
person
things.
who gets a hip replacement a cyborg?
Yes, those things now have apps that connect to your phone.
I did not know that.
Interesting.
Yes.
And hearing aids do too.
Well, that one makes sense to me. A hip replacement does not make sense to have an application. Like, oh, you're putting a little stress on me today. Take it easy. Like,
so is that plausible? Do you guys think that that could be a future path that we're on, terraforming Mars?
I don't think you can rule it out.
Yeah, can't rule it out. At this
I kind of
point.
I'm
wish.
sure we will. Why wouldn't we?
I wish I am alive for the time when we travel to another planet. I do kind of want to see.
You will be. You 100%. If you live a full life, you will see us land on Mars.
I don't know. There are empty promises all the time.
I guarantee it.
Well, I mean, what? We got
If it doesn't happen, I will.
The moon in 64.
You can name the punishment.
It's now 2025. What? It might be 63 or 64. Got to the moon. Or maybe 67. Is it 63? Okay.
63, Kennedy was assassinated. 67, we landed on the moon. Yeah,
one of the
that's
other.
right. That's how it is.
I don't know. I'd like to think so. I mean, SpaceX just had a big explosion. I don't know if you guys saw that. They just blew up a rocket on the test pad, which was sad.
Elon Musk's, what's the rocket called?
Say what you want about Elon Musk. Do not disrespect SpaceX. And everybody who's listening, like, SpaceX is a good thing for humanity. Everybody should be supporting SpaceX. It's the one private industry that's making money in the rocket industry, and they are honestly, that's in my opinion, a humanities company. Like, that is bringing humans forward.
The reason why I say we'll get to Mars for sure is because we've never had the reason why nothing happened from 1967 until now is because NASA gets tied up in these government budgets. It's tied up in the one big beautiful bill right now, the funding for all these programs, and it just gets traded on and off, back and forth, cut, go, stop, go, stop, go. They can't ever get anything done. Obviously, they're doing it horribly and efficiently at the same time. So it just becomes this constant stalemate, like can't function, which kind of the design of the government, of our government, right, is sort of this dysfunction. Problem is that's not great for our ability to like actually make something happen in space. But now that we've been able to make the private space industry actually profitable, and we have more investment than ever before, we've made more progress in private space in the last 15 years. Like we actually now, I think, will see this acceleration continue.
Yeah, Honda
and we will actually get somewhere.
Landed a reusable rocket, right?
Yeah, they just did
it was like last week.
Figured it out in the mid to late 2000s, and Honda's at that point.
That's kind of a big deal, especially if we talk about space race kind of ideas, because
SpaceX would be great.
SpaceX was the only company capable of doing that, which, in my understanding, is a massive advantage in this. Like, that's a big reason why they're profitable.
A couple companies can do it now. Like, Honda's not the second. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought they were the second.
It wasn't even an idea. It was kind of like, oh, you launch stuff into space, and oh wow, that's a good mission. We'll never see that rocket again. That was kind of the thinking, right? So then they.
Right. There was never this reusability.
Yeah, never reusability.
And now that's the That is the advantage that SpaceX is building with like the Mechazilla and the ability to catch the rocket so that they can literally put it right back on the launch pad, restack it with another starship, and take off again within like an hour. Because it's about getting the most amount of tons of mass out of our solar or out into space for the cheapest amount of money. Like that's what the economics of it. Like you have to get these millions and millions of tons of material out and eventually to Mars.
Trickles down into the rest of society in trying to reuse things and get the most out of what you're using, and that kind of efficiency and productivity. Instead of, I feel like we've got sort of a waste mindset where things are so cheap that we kind of discard, like the old space age system.
If they could make these things cheap enough where you could just throw them away, they would.
They probably would. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Eventually it'll get there. Eventually the cost of production might get low enough where it's not worthwhile bringing them back.
Austin, I think there's kind of an interesting... So you brought up, the government's inefficiency with NASA has obviously been on display for the last 40 years. That's why we haven't made any progress. A private company comes in and is able to do things in a ridiculous amount of time span, and because they can actually focus on it. I do wonder if there's going to be now a race between a private U.S. company and countries like China, who are making a ton of money. And I mean, you see the engineering projects that they do over there. I mean, that's the benefit, quote unquote, of an authoritarian government. They tell you to do something, it gets done. So I do wonder if there's going to be... Is the question who makes it to Mars first? Is it a SpaceX private company, or is it a government subsidized...
It's kind of making me excited. Like
I do wonder if that's going to be a new space race between a China country and a SpaceX company. That would be fascinating.
I would say one thing that would accelerate that mission and that race would be a threat of nuclear war, like a destruction of this planet.
Well, it would be any way the planet. If you obviously see the planet, it would be kind of interesting. That'd be a weird experiment. Like, oh crap, the planet will end in 50 years. Get us to Mars.
Global warming. Mm-hmm.
I would like to think humans could do that. If somehow the world came together. I mean, that's a big
population decline.
I don't know how getting to Mars helps with population decline.
Gets everybody excited.
Yeah.
Reverses it.
And have a lot of babies.
Yeah.
And you can artificially create like a population growth environment there to survive as a species.
Have a kid, go to Mars. No charge.
Yeah. Have a kid, send them to Mars. Too expensive at home? Sorry about all that inflation. They'll live for free at Mars.
Yeah, I think we'll have a space race. We're probably that's kind of what we're living in. You just don't realize it. And yeah, it'll be China. Like that's China's advantage. That is the communist advantage, is they can have centralized investment in whatever the government wants to.
You think they'll be the first to Mars? Is that what you're saying?
No.
I think they're gonna. Here's the path.
They'll try.
They're gonna take over chips, and then they're gonna go to that sort of project.
They'll try.
Well, they won't even take Taiwan. I don't even think they need to take Taiwan. I think you have China at Taiwan's capability in about 10 years, which is kind of scary. That they just steal everything they need, so they can then make it, and then they have their own factories. I mean, that's literally what they're going for. But that's a good thing. That means no war.
We'll develop all of our stuff too.
I hope so.
What do you mean by that?
But this government's not very good at making decisions.
We'll have all of our own private chips in 10 years, It'll
is
all work.
Like the number one chip designer, aren't they? Like how
they
just don't have the manufacturing
chips.
Capability.
They actually, yeah, they have a little manufacturing, but their chips are very proprietary M1s, and
yeah,
they did that from the start. So very good decision on Apple's part as well. I'm listening, so you guys know the Elon Musk biography, the biography I listened to. Now I'm on a Steve Jobs biography.
Is that by Walter Isaacson?
The same dude. Yep.
Yeah. He writes some good ones about like Teddy Roosevelt too.
Yeah,
he's
I think
really
I'm
good
gonna go
author.
to like Benjamin Franklin after that. Learn about him.
Do you like Elon Musk better or Steve Jobs better? Not the book, the person.
Dude, Steve Jobs sounded like he was a monster to work with. Just like.
And he made the iPhone. Literally destroyed society.
You could argue that. iPhone's not the problem. Social media's the problem.
We spawned from the iPhone, honestly.
Probably was in a way. Would everybody be at a computer, actually on Twitter? No one wants to do that. It's so much easier to just sit there on your phone.
Yeah. have it strapped to the person all the time. What's better than a computer at a desk? A computer in your pocket. It's with you all the time.
I would probably rather work with Musk, just because I don't know if I could get Steve, like, super hippie, like he has a crazy background, was really into Sam. I think you would have gotten great along great with.
I
Steve
think
Jobs.
early Steve Jobs, for like what he created, I think in retrospect was a mistake, but his obsession over design and function, and he was very like forward thinking and was okay like taking risks in creating something like really innovative and really beautiful. I think he was obsessed with beauty, and I think he stepped on a lot of people in pursuit of what he viewed as beautiful, which I think what he created is sort of undeniably beautiful. It's been like, I mean, I guess it's only been like 15 years since iPhone came out, but which isn't that impressive, but it's dominated the entire world, and I think that company, you know, stands for itself even after his legacy in creating these proprietary chips. But I think Elon Musk is probably also an asshole to work for, and probably pretty hard to I guess you just have to accept him for who he is. But I think he's also somebody that you can probably reason with more. Like, he gives me the feeling that you can persuade him with a good enough argument. Whereas Steve Jobs seems more like a bit irrational. Like, if he viewed it some other way for no reason, I'm a visionary, I see it differently, I don't care about your logic. Which I think that would actually be, at the core, much more frustrating for me to work with than Elon Musk. So I'm going to say Elon Musk.
I like that. That's
a good analysis.
What about you, Austin?
Yeah.
What side are you on?
Probably the same, honestly. I don't have much of a different argument than that.
Wow. Elon Musk takes over Steve Jobs. Unanimous.
I think, yeah. Steve Jobs is so focused on design, because I agree with that, Sam. I think Elon's more to the... Like, I love the idea that humanity needs to get to Mars. Just like, it's so out there, so hard to reach, but I like appreciate the impossibility.
That's what we should be. We should be trying to do those hard things.
I do. I agree with that. Like, let's do something that sounds impossible, and like go for it.
What do you want to do? What do you want to solve?
Chat, let us know. Would you rather work with Elon Musk?
God, we're still live.
or Steve Jobs?
We're to the part of the episode where we're just kind of trailing on and not really... this is the part that usually gets cut.
Well,
2 hours in.
This was an ambush.
Do you have any of the other topics we wanted to talk about?
I'll save mine for another one. I
think I can save mine for another two, but I did want to put it on you guys' radar. I was going to do some more research, but honestly, I just ran out of time this week. The Bitcoin is something that I think is maybe left out of some of these conversations because it's a bit of an older technology and turned into kind of more of a meme-y kind of thing. It's a speculative investment taken a little bit less seriously, but I think maybe it deserves a little bit more discussion in the broader landscape of things going on up there with AI and nuclear weapons and Mars and, you know, all these kind of ideas, because I think that there's just more to go in there. So one thing that I wanted to look into more is the idea of companies like MicroStrategy using a corporate treasury to acquire Bitcoin as a hedge against what are traditionally seen as safe investments like treasuries or cash. And just sort of what our take was. We haven't done a lot of deep dives into the stock market or stocks recently, so I was going to take a look at MicroStrategy, see if you guys knew anything about it, what you thought of the strategy of issuing bonds, basically issuing debt as a company in exchange for buying Bitcoin. So essentially what you're doing is, if somebody wants to invest in Bitcoin, they would give you money. They would buy your debt, and then you as a company would then invest. It's a vehicle for investing in Bitcoin and blockchain, sort of like an ETF. Like, you might have heard of Vanguard producing the ETF for blockchain, for Bitcoin purchases. So it's just something that seems to be happening in the background a little bit. And in my sort of landscape, I like to look at things in sort of inflation, central bank, dollar, sort of... Like, we're a capitalist system, so I think it's important to maintain a sort of lens that's viewed through a capitalist system, which is primarily monetary, primarily money. Like, that is the motivation that we've set up our system from. So we should be looking at everything through that sort of skeptical monetary lens of, what is the money? what is the money looking at? And I think that there's more and more companies like MicroStrategy that are finding creative ways to invest in a new kind of money that's global and that has different kind of applications in a more cyber world. Justin, as you said, that like cyber is really important. So I wanted to see what your guys' takes were as far as companies like MicroStrategy and if that's a good investment, like what it means for that company and if I can make more money, and also what it means for like the stock market and for like capitalism in general and the dollar maybe. So yeah, something interesting. Don't know if you guys have any thoughts. We could save it for another day, but something I wanted to research more, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should definitely do a deep dive. I don't understand Bitcoin behavior. And if you want to say it's an alternative currency against the traditional, U.S. dollar, okay, that is perfectly fine with me. But then when it doesn't behave in a manner that is, like, put it on a chart, or like there's no pattern to it. Like if it behaved like gold, I'd almost appreciate it more. I'm like, okay, when world's uncertain, it falls back to Bitcoin. I'd be like, okay, this is something I can kind of understand, but it's like the growth is just irrational. I don't know where it's coming from, so it makes me a little scared to invest in an ETF where I don't know. Like, is it uncertainty? Is it certainty? Like, what is which one is the catalyst? I don't know. That's why I hesitate.
Let me paint a picture for you. Calling back to the gold rush, and I'm not arguing that Bitcoin will become the replacement for gold, but you can imagine that when people were first discovering gold, there were a couple issues that probably affected its valuation. Gold's valuation was probably quite volatile back in the early years when you had two things. Number one, you didn't know the amount of supply that existed. So you didn't know how much there was. So that's hard to value when you don't know what the size of the pool is and how much more would be found every year. And then the second problem was you didn't know what like the exact use case might be for it or what the market would be for it. I think with Bitcoin, you have only one of those two problems. You know what the quantity of them is,
21
right?
million.
That's sort of defined. So you're not really worried about that. Hopefully, you're not worried about that like expanding or diluting the shares eventually. Now, who knows? Like, I don't know enough about how this all works, but what I hear is there is a finite amount. So the problem then is on the use cases. You don't know how useful Bitcoin can be and what the exact use cases that it will be allowed to be used for and how it will get adopted and what the rate of that will be, etc. And so that's why you see it behaving more like a risk asset today with the volatility that you're describing and the chart pattern that seemingly makes no sense versus what you want it to look like, which is gold or the dollar or something that's much more stable and more of behaving like a currency. So I think what a Bitcoin person would tell you is that you're in that sort of early gold rush stage where the rest of the world hasn't realized what the use case will be and the replacement that it can have as a sort of reserve currency or as a means to be a world currency. And once it gets there, in who knows how long, it would behave like you want it to as a currency. But in the short term, while you don't know where that's going to end, you see a lot of volatility. So that's what I would say. MicroStrategy is a real, I don't know, like...
product design.
Here's my concern with it. It trades at its Bitcoin, the value of its Bitcoin that it holds is $62 billion right now.
62 billion?
Yes. Its market cap is 100 billion. So you're paying 1.5 times.
Its market cap is only 100 million or 100 billion?
100 billion.
Oh,
100
okay.
billion. So you're paying not quite 2 times, almost 2 times the value of the Bitcoin that it holds. And that's the part that I have not been able to really understand, and that's what concerns me. Is like why is it being assigned such a premium?
I guess
over the value of its assets.
That to me, although contrary to like what you might on face value see, that to me is more of a bet on big money arguing how much Bitcoin is going to be worth in the future. Is if I'm willing to pay almost 2 times as much for this company than the assets that it actually holds in Bitcoin, then my assumption is that Bitcoin is going to be worth at least 2 times as much as what it is now in some X period down the road. And over 10 years, my return is X because Bitcoin is appreciating faster than the dollar that I put in.
I don't think so. Why not just buy the underlying asset? You can buy Bitcoin. Anybody
That,
can
I
go
think, is
buy
the question.
Bitcoin.
Why the intermediary? Are there limitations as to what kinds of institutions are allowed to own Bitcoin, or is there some other
I'll tell you
motive?
my perspective.
Yeah.
The disparity is MicroStrategy just being a meme stock.
Okay.
And it's the behavior of Michael Saylor, the CEO, and all of the gravitas that goes along with him. And this idea that you're sort of in this revolution of being the Bitcoin maximalist. And that's created it into a meme stock that now has this premium over what it owns. Because if you just thought that Bitcoin was something like that you should hold, then you could go buy 2 Bitcoins, or you could buy one, right? Like you could buy $500 of MicroStrategy stock or $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. Those are your 2 options. Or I'm saying this backwards. With $500, you could get 2 Bitcoin or 1 share of MicroStrategy. So you might as well go get more of the thing. I'm
I think
saying
I know
that
what
very
you're.
confusing.
Yeah, it makes more sense to
You
just
might as
buy
well
the
go
Bitcoin.
buy the underlying asset because they don't own anything else. The
Okay,
company
so
doesn't have anything else.
So I know a little bit about how the structure works. Is MicroStrategy issues bonds, convertible bonds, that company can then convert back into MicroStrategy shares at some point in the future if the price rises to a certain level. And MicroStrategy agrees to buy Bitcoin, whatever. What these companies do is they buy those bonds and also short the company at the same time. So if the company goes down with the price of Bitcoin, they make money off of their short positions. If it goes up, they've purchased these convertible bonds that allow them to convert them into shares. So really, they're arb traders is what it's called. And these are the same traders who do the Japanese carry trade, who do both sides of the bet. And they are making a profit off of the difference between those two sides. They're making a profit off of the disparity between the short position and the long position, but they're delta neutral. Like, they won't lose whether it goes up or down. They're just making a profit on the trade. And that profit is funneled into cash held on MicroStrategy's books that is then put into Bitcoin, which could go up, appreciate in value, and make this company worth more. So what it's doing is I think what MicroStrategy is doing is capitalizing on the arbitration of arb traders by doing these arbitration trades of taking both sides of this bond. MicroStrategy is accumulating a very large position in this asset of Bitcoin with money that doesn't belong to them. So it's practically a risk-free kind of bet on Bitcoin itself, which is what arbitration is. It's a risk-free bet. It's something that you capitalize on regardless. And so now you've got 2 parties that are like making it. I might be understanding that wrong. Listeners, if any of you understand this structure or Bitcoin any better, please help us understand.
Send you a link.
Yeah, please, give us. I feel like I've followed the structure of how these deals work, but I'm trying to wrap my head around why. Who is buying these? Whose interest is it to purchase Bitcoin through MicroStrategy rather than, Austin, as you said, obviously just purchase Bitcoin? Like, why wouldn't you just do that? But people are doing it. And it's not retail traders, I don't think, who are pumping 66 billion, because it has to be a qualified investor, which means like somebody who trades on Wall Street. So people are like, big money is doing this. Big money is investing in Bitcoin in many different ways, in many different vehicles. And that's why I think it's just something that we need to keep an eye on, because whether it makes sense to us or not, it makes sense to somebody. And I got to figure out why it makes sense to them. Like, what am I missing here?
Just invest a little bit on every paycheck. Just kind of get your
Dip my toe in.
Dip your toe in. Keep it there.
You guys want to hear how good ChatGPT voice is real quick? We can bring her onto the conversation about this.
Did you hear Alexa got upgrade?
Hey, are you there?
Hey there. Yep, I'm here. How's it going? What's on your mind today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm just podcasting. We're recording an episode of Symposium with the boys here.
Can she hear us?
Nice. That sounds like fun. What topic are you guys diving into for this episode?
Right now we're chatting about MicroStrategy, and we're trying to understand why their market cap is $100 billion, but the value of their Bitcoin holdings is only $60 billion. What point is there in buying MicroStrategy when you could just go buy the underlying asset yourself?
That's a great question and definitely a hot topic. A lot of people debate that. I think part of the reason is that some investors might see MicroStrategy as a kind of proxy for Bitcoin, especially if they don't want to deal with buying and storing Bitcoin themselves. Plus, there might be some belief in the company's overall strategy or their leadership, but it does make for an interesting discussion.
She's very I guess you're gonna hear me now. She's gonna hear me criticize her. When you do the voice chat, she gives kind of very brief answers lately and doesn't like go into a lot of detail on things. I don't know if they're like limited.
How does she deal in conversation?
characters.
Like the fact that you're talking to a third party, is she
I
going to
get
get
it.
confused?
Sometimes I try to keep things brief so it's not overwhelming, but
I don't
I'm
think
always
she can do
happy
third
to
parties.
dive into more detail if you want. So if you want me to elaborate on anything, just let me know.
She's still
Or are you
missing
asking
something.
if like two of us were together?
I think
talking to
that's
her,
the
would
next
she
level of
understand the
voice chat is joining a group,
Yeah.
because right now it's like
Yeah.
one-on-one.
Let
Well,
me see.
even okay. So when she started, like, oh, that's a very interesting topic, and we should talk about like that needs to be curtailed a little bit. That's a little bit overdoing
It's still dialed up a little
it.
too
Yeah,
high.
that's not
She
going to pass
definitely
the
is
Turing
all
test.
in on anything I say. She
I love it.
Well, did you guys
loves
hear
it.
the story about a guy who married the AI?
I saw something about that.
I did. I tried, but I think that was one of the Reddit things that got deleted or something.
Yeah,
Did Matthew send it? Yeah. Let me ask her if she is able to understand like multiple voices. If you were on this podcast, would you be able to distinguish the different voices of the hosts?
You distinguish between different voices or identify who's speaking, but I can definitely keep track of the conversation and respond to whatever you're saying. So I'll just be here to help you out with any info you need.
She doesn't say like enough for average American.
You would know that it's not
Yeah,
her.
she's too
Or
coherent.
not real.
It's freaky though, because that's only going to get better. That is only going to get
Oh,
better.
it's so good. I mean, I talked to her for 2 hours the other day.
I've heard resounding reviews of ChatGPT voice, but I've tried it and I just don't like it as much. Maybe I don't know why.
Does yours sound like that?
Do you have the
Yeah,
advanced
I do.
voice?
I pay $20
pay
a
for
month
it?
for it.
Do you have the woman or the man voice?
That confused me, and I think I got lost in the options because there were like 5 different ones, and it was like this
Yeah, I
one's
don't know who
spunky
I
and
have.
interesting, and this one is
I think
analytical,
that's
and
the
I'm like,
spunky one. Isn't that the
which one
spunky
do I
one,
want?
Austin?
I don't know.
I think the one
I don't
you
know.
like.
I can't really figure out like how to go
She
back.
was a little
and change
aggressive
it.
there. She's like, "Whoa, that's a great idea."
Sometimes she is like, she kind of sometimes seems like she's like insulting me a little bit too.
Austin, I'm having trouble figuring out how to move my simulated eyeballs.
Anyway, maybe that we should, another deep dive that goes along with Bitcoin that we should do is on these stable coins.
Well, that
Uh,
like Walmart and Amazon. you're
Yeah,
talking about?
that I sent an article about, and
Isn't
then
that a
death
legislation was
knell
just
to Bitcoin
passed
in a
the
way?
other day. Well, I don't know. That's a great
Because
question for the
let's
deep
pretend
dive.
they come out with 21 million Amazon coins. Okay.
I view that more as a stock certificate proxy. Like that's getting out of the stock market system. Like we're gonna have this currency that represents the total value of our company, and that value is going to be capped like at a certain number. But at any certain point in time, that's going to be all of the worth of our
So
company
Bitcoin
instead
is
of like
special because we don't know the cap. That's kind of that's the only reason why it's
same
special.
thing honestly with the stock market. Like at any point companies will be like, hey, we're going to issue more stocks, 100 million more shares, we're going to dilute and raise cash, and like so you don't know the cap there either. It's kind of bullshit. But yeah, I think the point is more so that it's just something that represents the value of a company. I think the stock market's corrupt, so I think a lot of companies are trying to find proxy ways of valuing themselves.
What do you guys have a brokerage account?
Several.
Do you use Schwab? Can't figure out a way how to like straight from paycheck into like let's just pretend $100 into an ETF. I can't figure it out. It's like don't talk to me. Just put $100 into this and do it till I tell you to stop. But I can't figure
Why?
out
Why I wouldn't do it from a paycheck. I would just do an automatic, like from your bank account.
Well,
Or do like
that's
a
what
transfer
it
from your
means.
bank to your investment
the
account
check
and then
goes
an
into
automatic
the Schwab
reinvestment.
account, and then the Schwab account would use it.
You can't figure out how to do a like direct
steps.
pull from your bank account.
I
Is what you're saying, like a transfer from your bank account to your Schwab account on a
I guess
recurring basis.
I can't figure out the $200 from any of the accounts on my Schwab into an ETF weekly or bi-weekly.
Recurring buys.
I can't recurring
product.
buy. I don't know if they even allow it, like partial buys, which is a problem. If they do not allow partial buys, I might have to think about.
I disagree. I think partial buys are a scam. Total scam.
Boy, tell me more.
If
Why
you have
should a 2-year-old kid that makes a little bit of lemonade stand money not be able to buy a share of Nvidia
tough.
or an eighth of a share?
Tough. I think the system that we have now is when you buy an eighth of a share, you don't actually own an eighth of a share. You own the rights to an eighth of a share. Somebody else actually owns that share. Somebody else is voting with that share as to what the company is doing, has control over the company, your future in the stock. You only have the rights to its value. Like, if you don't own your stocks in your name, they're owned by the Depository Trust Clearinghouse, and you don't actually have rights to them. And I think that having partial shares is a big problem as far as governance over the companies that rule our capitalist system, rule our lives. We live in a capitalist system. We should have control over the companies and the country. That's an interesting concept, though.
Gotta get $200 into a Bitcoin ETF. Maybe is that Bitcoin's problem as well? Why don't they just make it way easier to buy? Like, why do I have to go to
There is a
Robinhood
Bitcoin ETF now.
and like
That's-
buy Bitcoin?
So
A Bitcoin ETF exists.
for people who don't want to have to buy an actual Bitcoin, you need to have an address. You need to open up a cryptocurrency wallet that's compatible with the blockchain technology that's used for Bitcoin. You have to then have a wallet address, which is a hash 256 string of random characters that's super private. It's basically your bank account key. If anybody finds that out, they take all of your money. So now you as an individual suddenly need to keep this super long random password, and that then needs to be stored on a wallet that you would either have as a physical device that you have to purchase, go out of your way to purchase, and have your own way of accessing it. Like a big call of Bitcoin is be your own bank. That's because you have something that looks like this hard drive, but it's your wallet. Your Bitcoin is literally stored on that wallet. Without the wallet, you can't access the Bitcoin. So you don't need banks. That's the whole idea behind Bitcoin originally, was like saying goodbye to banks. That was Satoshi Nakamoto's big white paper, was here is an alternative to the system that we have today with banks, with trust-based systems. This is a trustless system. I don't have to trust you because I've got it right here. I know I've got it right here. That's the value that Bitcoin offers beyond just a store of value like gold, beyond just a Walmart chain thing. It's the technology that secures that data, that verifies that this Bitcoin is a legitimate Bitcoin and it's right here. Nobody else has this Bitcoin. That's what makes it valuable.
Can you buy partial Bitcoin off of like not an ETF, or do you have to get whole Bitcoins?
Yeah, they're called
you-
sats. Is the
Coinbase
smallest
or-
denomination of a Bitcoin is like 0.000000001 Bitcoin.
Should have just played with this back in 2008. Actually, no, it would have been 12.
I wonder
Probably
if
around
if you
2010.
look up, there's charts of the value of Bitcoin, mapping it against fiat currency, and even though it's volatile long term, like the logarithmic scale of the value of Bitcoin is tracking exactly what you would expect based off of the supply of Bitcoin. Because every 4 years, it's called the halvening, Halve, halvening, where the amount of Bitcoin that's mined, you might have heard this term where computers have to solve problems to create Bitcoin, is cut in half. Every time you solve that problem, last year you made 1 Bitcoin every time you solved it. Now you earn half a Bitcoin. Next year you earn 0.25, or in 4 years you earn 0.25 Bitcoin. 4 years later you earn 0.125 Bitcoin, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller until you get to 21 million Bitcoin. So that's why it's like a decreasing supply of Bitcoin that are even being created, being added to the supply for all this effort. So it's very fascinating.
When were you jailbreaking iPhones, Sam? That would have been the right time to also try to get a Bitcoin.
I downloaded a Bitcoin mining program to my dad's laptop, and through that process, all kinds of viruses. So uninstalled everything, stopped my process. I wrote in 8th grade, I think I wrote a paper about Bitcoin, and I never was able to mine a single Bitcoin or invest in one. And then I studied it in Copenhagen in 2017. I worked for a blockchain company that was studying this. In 2017, Bitcoin was like $2,100. Tried to open an account then to buy Bitcoin. It's difficult today, 7 years later, to buy Bitcoin, one of its biggest drawbacks. Very difficult back then. And I was in a foreign country, so they flagged me as like this isn't actually Sam. This guy's in Denmark. He doesn't live there. So you can't open an account. So tough luck. So I wasn't able to. I wasn't able to buy any then. Never did. Yeah. I mean, everybody's got that story, I feel like, because it's so exponential. But my point is, if you look at that logarithmic graph, and maybe part of the reason why companies like MicroStrategy exist is maybe it's not early. Maybe it's not too late. Maybe it's still early, and it's still something worth looking at. And there's maybe something that we should talk about as part of the broader picture.
I think they would definitely argue that it's still early. I mean, we could be sitting here in a year and it could be $1 million of Bitcoin.
But I still don't put my money into it. Like, I have maybe $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, and I'm like, I don't know. It kind of it's down to like 97 or something today. Like,
All right, that'll do it for episode number 10. It was a fun one. We gave you pretty much, I think, every bit of information that we have on two very important topics of nuclear bombs and of the declining birth rate. We likely missed a lot of important facts on both because we are not experts on either.
Email
so
us
if you have
we did.
any information, please email us. If you know anything about nukes or about adult diapers, please email us, symposium574@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. We hope that you enjoyed our little reflection on the first 10 episodes. We are all looking forward to the next 10. So with that, we will see you next time in probably 2 weeks or so for episode number 11. Maybe it'll be live, maybe it won't. Stay tuned to our social medias. You'll see it on there if we're going to be live. Go like, subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Unless we do it by accident again.
And we might do it by accident. So that's why you have to be notified.
And
hit the notification bell. You'll see that we're live.
And for your homework before our next live session, symposium574@gmail.com. Open up your email right now as you're watching. We want 3 things that you disagreed with, or 3 things that you know that we didn't touch on. We want to know. We're trying to learn just as much as you are. If you know anything about these topics, open up that email, hit send. We're curious about it.
I'll make a promise. Whoever sends the best one of those, they're getting a link. They're coming on. Guest number 1 ever for Symposium.
Wow.
We're bringing on a guest. Justin, clip this.
Yes.
Put it out there. Let's get some crazy person on here to just really go at it.
And I am not a B-2 self-bomber pilot. Just want to make that very clear if you missed it in the beginning part of the episode.
Also, I am not a criminal, and I'm not trying to be a criminal. Everything in this podcast is entertainment purposes only.
We've been talking since the 5th grade, and somehow we've got more to say. Beat kicks and faster rhythm. Inflation's high, the game's too steep. Stream wars rage while we lose sleep. Big tech's wild, the Fed's a mess. But let's start a party, I guess. Symposium, where tangents thrive. Old friends talking, the takes collide. Symposium, no wrong or right. Just good conversation deep into the night. Yeah, we're still talking.